Thank you, Dr. Sangeeta. At the very outset, I would like to really again welcome Dr. Ajay Kumar. As you know, today is the Technology Day, and there are so many programs happening in the city and in the country. And I would like to say we are privileged to have him, and we have, I should say, the best speaker on this day. You see, looking at the digital content, we as librarians and those interested in knowledge are very much interested in the digital content. And I'm sure, and I would like to stress on this, that the government is doing very laudable programs and undertaking very initiatives, important initiatives to spread digital content in the country. We are really wanting to have a knowledge society, and we are moving towards it. And in order to have a knowledge society, we have to have digital content which is of use to our people. That is very, very important. Now, our library professionals who are here have been digitizing content for the last 2 decades or a little more, and still what we feel is that a lot of good material is available in the rare important libraries in the country which has not been digitized. And we have a lot of issues, and these issues contain that everybody now is trying to digitize content, digitize a book. And a book may be digitized several times because there is no central resource, a repository that will tell us or anybody that this book is already digitized and this is done by a particular institution or particular department of the government. So there's a need wherein DELNET is really interested in doing something to have a repository of the digital resources available in the libraries or elsewhere. Now, already in the field of digital content, you see the Digital Library of India was established by DT, and then the National Digital Library has been established by the Ministry of Human Resource Development, and there was also work done on the National Virtual Library. A lot of issues, a lot of efforts have been made, but I'm sure that we are moving in the right direction. There are concerns. When we look at the digital content, there are concerns of rights and permissions. We want digital content to reach the people, but at the same time we want authors who create digital content to be compensated. So there's a need to have a framework for rights and permissions so that the digital content moves from one hand to another without violating the copyright rules. So therefore we have, I'm sure the DT will be looking into it at some stage in future. And also there is, once the Government of India, as you are going to go through this presentation by our Honorable Speaker, you are going to see how much content is getting developed. And the job of the librarians is really to find out what is the quality content, which is the best content. Now the government's job is really to see that content gets generated at a high speed, at a high rate, and our job, the librarian's job, is to find the quality content. This is something very important, and therefore we also, if we have to serve the users, we have to have some kind of a mechanism where an integrated access is provided to the digital content and the print content. So therefore, I don't want to take much of your time because we are going to have a wonderful speech, but 1 or 2 more issues. One is the language content. You see, in the libraries, the content in Indian languages has not been produced in more quantity, and therefore we have to do something. I'm sure the infrastructure available with DT is such that this is possible and this can be accessible, and we can have content getting translated from one language to another. But at the same time, which is there at this stage in this country, because those who have mobile applications, they may be using the mobiles, but they don't have access to knowledge. They don't have access to the information that they need for their development, for their promotion, for any type of work. So therefore, there's a big gap between the content available and the content which is needed by the users. So I'm sure that DT will look into it, and we all and our friends in the profession around the country and even outside this, they will look into it, how this gap, the digital divide, can be bridged. I'm sure that we are going to have a wonderful presentation. You are all welcome to make notes, and I'm sure the Honorable Speaker will answer questions at the end of the presentation. With these few words, I now request the Honorable Speaker, Dr. Ajay Kumar, to start his presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, friends. Respected Dr. Kaul, Madam, my esteemed colleague, Dr. Rajat Moona from DG CDAC, friends who have come to join us, and very esteemed colleagues from the LIS fraternity. First of all, let me thank Dr. Kaul for having invited me for this talk. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to be part of this gathering, a very learned gathering, which one really gets an opportunity to talk to like this. In fact, one of the things when we were at IIT Kanpur, we were most proud of was our library. And I think that is what identifies an institution. I am aware across Kanpur and across UP, IIT Kanpur library used to be talked about subject. And I think that is, I have always thought, even earlier before IIT Kanpur in my school, my first most place in my school where I used to love to go was the library, because you could issue storybooks then there. But library becomes such an important part of one's individual's formation itself, I think. It is that role today in a new context. Then it was all physical, today it's all digital. I think the context has changed, but the importance of library and content has, if at all, increased. And to that extent, I think I really thank you sincerely for having given me this opportunity to be part of this group and share some of the thoughts on digital content. And Digital India is nothing but about digital content. Whether we are doing infrastructure, whether we are developing services depend on content, or actually enabling people to be able to use digital content. This is what Digital India is about. So some of the things that we think we are trying to move towards, and how the library community can participate in this movement and make it bigger and faster. This is a small presentation which may take about half an hour, 45 minutes, and thereafter I'll be very happy to take questions. The first point which I wanted to make in this is that the content in the world is increasing at a pace which is actually unfathomable. There are 50 transactions per person per day happening today, and 50 e-transactions which people are doing digitally. And considering that we still have less than 10 to 15% coverage in countries like India, which constitute 15, and there's a whole lot of developing world which is still not connected. If you're looking at so many transactions, so at least 50 times per person is, on average, in the world is doing e-transactions. YouTube is uploading 48 hours of new video every minute, which means that in virtual time we are creating content 3,000 times of real time. So every 1 minute we are doing about 3,000 minutes of content created. But the speed at which the decoding of human genome, which took 10 years initially, now can be done in 1 week. And Rajat is of course involved in the supercomputer, National Supercomputer Mission project, which will possibly make it possible in a day or so. The content size is increasing so fast that we are discovering new ways of describing it. And I've just talked about kilo, mega, giga, tera, peta, exa, zeta, and so on and so forth. But one page is 2 kilobits, which is roughly, if we had a 100-page book, it would be 200 kilobits, which would be in the first category. And today, all US academic research library data is 2 petabits, and 2 petabits is not treated as big data anymore. Most interesting is that we are today doubling content every day roughly from our existence. That is the pace of exponential growth of data, digital content. We like it today. We have Internet of Things, we have YouTube, we have social media, so many things. And therefore, while the total data of US academic research library is only 2 petabytes, the extent of data that is being developed every second is 50 terabytes. And that is the speed. So the broad point of all this is that there is content happening at a very rapid pace and at an exponential pace. We are in this world today. We are in a digital world. And this is the excitement. This has not happened before. Every day the content is doubling of whatever has been done till now, and this is the history of mankind. Having said that, I would also like to say, if you were to compare this, all this is global data, if you were to look at India, we are actually still quite way behind. If, like I mentioned, in terms of connectivity, we are roughly, if you look at most of the technology penetration parameters, except for mobile phones where we have crossed about 1 billion phones now, we have, and the pace has accelerated in the last couple of years or so, but if you look at prior to 2 years, we were in the range of 5 to 15% for most technology good penetration in the country. There also, in terms of, especially because in terms of speed, this average speed has been low, and therefore the extent of data that in India we had created in the past is actually, we would form in the lower quadrant of the countries of the world where per capita data creation, digital content creation is concerned. And to that extent, we have not done too well as compared to the rest of the world. And quickly speaking, why is this so important? Why is the fact that how we are doing in creating digital content so important? And there are 3 reasons which I specifically mentioned on a very broad level. These are very high level thoughts. One is that it is today fairly well accepted that economic benefits accrue from using technology in various processes, whether it is government or business or academic or otherwise. And there is this is fairly well established now, but there is 2 very interesting articles which I think define this thing very well. And the first was written by Nicholas Carr in a Harvard Business Review, when he said, does IT matter? Does it matter to create digital content? Because his point was, in any case, this is a commodity which everyone will use, and therefore it really neutralizes everyone to the same level. It really does not make any difference whether A is using IT or B, because everyone then comes at a higher level, at a faster pace they do things, but everyone is doing the same thing. And then in the same year, Farlan and Nolan wrote another article which countered what Carr had said, and later on Carr himself goes and writes the same thing in 2005 again, when he says, it says IT does matter. And where they argue why it is not the commodity IT or it's the commodity content creation that matters. What IT does, it enables you to do things differently. And it is this different application of technology in various systems and processes that will really make a huge difference in the way you can improve your economic performance, productivity. In libraries also, for example, it can make a huge difference. Libraries can use technology, as possibly you must have seen, and the results are totally different, And that is where today it is fairly well accepted that, use of technology can lead to much higher productivity and competitiveness. But even more importantly, there is this whole thought of options. What technology does and why this is so important is that it is not what it does, what it allows you to do today, but what options it opens for you for tomorrow. Because if you are not using technology, those options never really get available to you. It's really the real options theory, which stock options, which people use when they take a job, because when a person takes stock options in a job, he's actually making an option that if the company does well, my stock will go up and therefore I will get better remuneration. something akin to that. When you use technology, you are taking an option that I will avail of this opportunity. I just wanted to relate a story here. How new options come, and there are obscene number of such stories across. I'm sorry. The obscene number of such stories which are there, American Airlines, way back in 70s or 80s, when the computerization was still not there and air ticketing was still happening physically, and there was a lot of inefficiency because you had, let's say, 200 seats in a plane and you had 20 agents, you gave 10 seats or whatever to each agent, and some agents would sell, some would not sell, but passengers would be waiting, and therefore American Airlines for the first time introduced a computerized ticketing system. And that was a great grand success because immediately their ability to fill up their planes increased significantly. It was called Sabre. And all their agents started getting connected on network after a period of time. When other airlines saw this, they immediately came to American and said, we would also like to use your software. And so they started licensing that software to other airlines. And they said, all right, we will also allow other airlines to be figured. So agents in any case were working for multiple airlines. So when an agent would show up, all the airlines would show up and the various flights options would show up. But of course, since it was a software which was developed by American Airlines, what they did was, when let's say someone wanted to go from Chicago to San Francisco, if there was an American airline flight was there and available, it would show up first, and then others will show up. So obviously they had a bias towards the American Airlines. We see this all the time, when you do a Google, you see the first 4 or 5 links, never go beyond that. So obviously American, although they were licensing the same technology, Americans started getting far more business from because theirs will show up first and people will immediately go for the flight and the seat is available. And then the other airlines tried to argue with American did not agree. They went to the court, and this went up to the Supreme Court of America, became a very famous case there, where they said that this is monopoly, this is uncompetitive trade practice. And the Supreme Court finally did order in a very famous landmark case against Americans, saying that if you are using on the same platform, you have to give neutral this thing, and since then it was changed. But the fact of the matter is, American, of course, and like most of airline industry, got into serious trouble by 90s and in the early 2000s. Sabre was spun off as a separate company. A lot of Indian reservation systems also run on Sabre today. Is making more money than American Airlines. American Airlines was not in the business of doing reservation. But the point I was making is, there are a large number of such stories today where options have opened by doing IT in doing things differently. And today, library, you see it yourself. How by using technology today, the ability to offer inter-library loan, let's say, or to offer, various other kinds of checks and balances, copyright protections, etc., are available thanks to use of technology. IoT, like I said, is the latest which has come now, which is going to disrupt everything which has been done so far in future in a manner. But if you were not using technology, you are not going to use the IoT straight off. And that is the point, that today it is digital technologies enables you to use options of the future, and to that extent it is extremely important for us to catch this digital bandwagon. The second very important thing is the social benefits. I mean, we talk of democracy, we talk of inclusion and participation. Physical world, I mean, it is impossible to have large number of, democracy really becomes a question of having a few people really decide what it means for the rest of the country. Today, and I am very happy to have been part of this MyGov initiative, for example, and I say this without any political connotation, but MyGov has enabled people to actually participate in the on various important public policy matters, both give their ideas and thought, as well as actually implement projects and things which can be done. I'm sure all of you are aware of MyGov. I don't have to say what MyGov is. Several of the leading programs and ideas have actually come out of MyGov, and Prime Minister often talks of so and so, इसने मुझे बताया MyGov पे idea दिया, and he names them also further to encourage more people to come onto the platform and participate in this process. So technology today enables much more, and of course Friedman said the world is flat. Whatever can be done, it has enabled countries like India to leapfrog and do things which otherwise we couldn't have done. India providing services to US in 1990, when there was at least 20, 30, 40 years of developmental gap in terms of what we were doing and what we were using, was possible because of this use of technology. So there are a lot of social benefits. But I think what Dr. Kaul said, and I think that is the most important thing, is if we are looking at inclusion, technology can provide you access, technology can provide you content, but if the language is so natural and inherent to every individual, unless we can do local language, do it in local language, this desire for social inclusion and participation will not happen. And I think this is a huge challenge, because today, unfortunately, as far as we are concerned, the content is all in alien languages, foreign languages, including English, which is the closest that we follow in this country. But even that is followed by a very small fraction of the people. Rest of the languages in which content is available, whether it is European languages or whether it is Asian languages like Chinese or Japanese or Korean, is something which we have not been able to master in our country. So I think one of the things which I may possibly come back to is the issue of trying to see how greater local language content is made available. And I think this is a place, especially talking to an audience which represents content so richly, I think a very important point. Lastly, I think technology is very important, because it is today now becoming clearer that after the use of technology, and in the field of technology itself, the pace of innovation has been absolutely, again, something unprecedented in the history of mankind. I mean, today we have half-life of technologies of months, let alone forget years. I mean, in several cases, you see how new things keep coming all the time. I mean, you have an app, and you have a new app, and you have a new phone, and you have a newer phone, etc., etc. So, technology, because of the ability to store, retrieve, access, use, reuse information, has created a huge amount of innovation. And the second huge part of it is huge difference which has happened in the last few years, is which was not part of intellectual activity, is that user-generated content has become very, very large part of our intellectual content creation. Previously, most of the content was created by researchers and other intellectual people, but whether you look at social media, whether you look at various other kind of contexts, and two examples which to my mind reflect this or have sprung up so much more because of this user-generated content, is one, you see startups today. As a result of technology, it is possible for any youngster to come up with a bright idea and come and create his startup and then make it available to a large number of people. If it clicks, then you have $1 million, one more $1 million baby created, and these babies are being created more frequently than ever before. And the second is the content, because of the long tail in various kind of content, especially in the audiovisual, literary, and that kind of thing. Previously, I mean, the song industry is particularly known to have been saying this, that they had never seen, they have suddenly seen revival of some very old songs of Manna Day and Mukesh and all that, which were not so popular, they are not super hits, because all of us are used to, ordinary people like me are used to hearing the super hits and we enjoy the hits and we love listening to them. But the connoisseurs and the people who are interested in those very special songs, there are few people, but they could never get access to those songs because those recordings and all were not available. Digital technology has made it available, and those small numbers, when added over a large number of pieces, create a huge business opportunity, the long tail of this new content, literary activities, some desire in learning, in education, desire for content in some unique courses which only few students want, who are even dispersed somewhere in the world. Today, you can create that content and there are people who would like to receive that content. This is all creating new intellectual society of a different form. And these, I think, are important determinants for creating content. Having said that, yes, the world is creating digital content very fast. There are a lot of good advantages which the world is seeing digital content. And having said that, we haven't done so well. What is that we want to do as part of catching up that we need to play with respect to Digital India? And that's what mainly I would like to talk what efforts Government of India is taking under its Digital India program. So Digital India program, again, which has already been mentioned, is basically try to transform India into a digitally empowered society and knowledge economy. I want to say this very upfront, that why it is very different from what has been done till now is that this is not about government. This is about society. This is about the 1.27 billion Indians as a whole, at least, if not more. So what government does is actually to facilitate how these people can actually be digitally empowered and become a knowledge society. And government actions are only part of the whole effort. There are three key areas of Digital India. To do this, to create a knowledge society, to create a digitally empowered society, you need to have digital infrastructure for every citizen. You need to make sure that governance and services are available on demand to every citizen, and then there is digital empowerment of citizens. These are the three big pillars of Digital India which try to umbrella this program. Now, on digital infrastructure, I'm sure you must have, you all know about the major efforts that are going on digital infrastructure. The National Optical Fiber Network project, which is supposed to provide optical fiber to all the panchayats in the country. You have seen the 2G, 3G options, and more spectrum is likely to be auctioned, so hopefully the quality of connectivity across the mobile network will increase. Wi-Fi, National Knowledge Network, of which several of you may already be part of, I hope everyone is part of. Today, over 1,500 universities have been connected, universities and other institutions. Wi-Fi is becoming, public Wi-Fi is becoming increasingly common and popular. Idea is that most places, no matter where you are in the country, you should be connected so that you are able to do digital work, do digital technology. All these efforts are going on. Another important part is common citizen service centers. Common citizen service centers, idea is to have at least one such kiosk in every panchayat and more, so that people who don't have access themselves can go to this kiosk and connect to the digital world and do rest of the transactions. Plus, it also provides a facilitated mode help where people can be handheld for doing this. All this is part of digital infrastructure. But I think this is what normally every country has done. But today, I think what makes it most remarkable in India is three things that we have done, which distinguish us from rest of the world. This is something on which India is today the leader in a way. It has given these technologies to the world. It is using these technologies. But most importantly, why it is very important. I mentioned earlier that most of the things that we do in this country, our penetration is 5 to 15%, except mobile phones. And why mobile phones became so common and popular was because it was possible to bring down the cost of mobile phones significantly at a level, not only the device but also the charges for, the cost of, you had the concept of prepaid 50 rupees recharge with 6 months validity and all that. All these business processes which were created in India, which made it possible for the poorest of the poor literally to use a mobile phone at a very cheap cost, made this happen. If any of this so-called desires for inclusion, desires for all the people to use technology is to happen to India, we have to have ways by which technology becomes very, cost effective. And unfortunately, the traditional worldwide models have not been so and did not suit our requirements. Now let me touch on what is this. So we have today what has now started, people have started calling this as something called India Stack. The India Stack is unique to India, and it is leading the technology effort in this country. One is of course Aadhaar. You all know about Aadhaar. Today we have the largest biometric database in the world with more than 1 billion people covered, which allows you real-time online authentication of your identity, which is otherwise not possible. It is a costly affair to establish your identity on real-time in an online environment. And if you are looking at online world, a cyber world, a virtual world of real, then at a marginal cost of zero today, it is possible using Aadhaar to establish your identity. And that is why Aadhaar is so important and fundamental to this new digital world. And we have, like I said, we already have over a billion people covered. So we are nearly there in terms of 100% coverage with respect to Aadhaar. The second important digital infrastructure which helps us create a digital world and a digital content much larger is digital lockers, where every citizen has a private space in a public cloud. Now that's not something uncommon. In all we've seen Google Drives and OneDrive and other drives where people have their private space in public cloud. All this is different is that in digital locker it is now being the framework is that the public authorities and other private authorities can push the documents relating to that individual into his locker. So my school pass certificate or my graduation degree or my other important documents, even B2B transactions, the documents can be pushed to his digital locker. As a result of which, in future, if someone wants to use these documents either for employment or for any other purposes, for other, you buying a house and you have to produce your identity, your PAN card, your this card, that residential proof, all you have to do is give the permission to the agency with whom you have to share these documents and say, you can look at this. And the document will be shared, will be visible and available for use by the user agency. There is no likelihood of any duplicates. It is single, it's coming from the source of truth, and the biggest convenience to the citizen is that he doesn't have to run around getting attested by gazetted officers anymore. Say, please, these 5 certificates. He doesn't have to produce a plethora of documents every time to the agency concerned, and it makes his life very easy. More importantly, it doesn't matter. I could be a citizen, I may be from Bihar, and when I come to Delhi as a migrant laborer, I could still show my ration card to the ration card shop owner and say, here is my ration card, this is my entitlement, and it allows portability of entitlements. That is, that today my entitlement is only in my limited where I was located. Once this is on cloud, it will enable this kind of portability. And the last important bit which I mentioned earlier was the e-sign. When you make an application online, when someone makes an application online, there is no authentication that this application has been made by by the person who claims to have made that application. The only way you could do this is through digital signature. And as we all know, digital signatures is a costly affair. I always, when I talk of digital signatures, I am reminded of this this incident. So in the IAS, we were few years back, 4 or 5 years back, it was made mandatory that all ACR should be made online and should be digitally signed by the officers. As part of this, the government also asked NIC to provide digital signatures to all the IAS officers so that they could digitally sign their ACRs every year, and it was going on fine. Till about 2 years back, when the NIC's digital certifying authorities got into some difficulty, and we could not issue fresh digital signatures, and hell broke loose. officer said that, look, if you want us to sign our ACR's digital, you have to provide digital signatures, and we didn't have digital signatures. So we had to procure digital signatures for officers and give it to them so that they could sign their ACR. Point I'm making is, if even IAS officers feel that it's costly to possess a digital signature so that they can sign their ACRs, when you're expecting a poor villager in the village to come and sign his application online so that he can get his 250 rupees pension from the government, don't expect him to get digital signatures. What eSign has done is, it has enabled people to sign documents online at a marginal cost, again maybe close to a rupee or so. So today it is possible to authenticate a document when you make an application or do anything else using eSign, again unique to India, for which the Controller of Certifying Authorities CCA has notified the rules. There are already 3-4, including CDAC is one of the eSign providers in the country. So there are 3-4 and more are coming, more and more eSign providers. Like you have digital signature providers, you have eSign providers who are coming in the country. This India stack today enables us to make anything that we do today, which is, it has to be faceless, paperless, and cashless I'm going to talk about. But why I say is, it's extremely important that when we are looking at creating digital content in large quantities, we should look at end-to-end creating services where there is, people should be able to go, sit and complete all the formalities on the system, and they should be able to derive the service on the system without having to do half the work here, then go and take some papers there, give it there, and then, so physical interface should be reduced, and then really the benefit will start to derive on it. The second part of it is the cashless part. I mean, it is today fairly well agreed that cash introduces friction in the economy, and simply by removing cash, and if no other change takes place, the GDP of the country can go up by 0.5%. If you do nothing else, same size of economy, the GDP will go by 0.5% growth rate. But an essential part of that cashless economy is everyone should at least have a bank account which is digitally connected. And that effort, of course, again, as I'm sure all of you know, is the Jan Dhan, a massive exercise of enrollment took place. About 20 crore plus accounts have been opened in the last 1.5 years or so. And today we have, I will not say 100% financial inclusion, but we have near financial inclusion accounts have been created. The second part of it is today, while online work has been going on, now we are increasingly going into a world of unified payment. It does not matter what kind of form of electronic money you are holding. You should be able to interact with, today if you have a mobile wallet, you can only from Paytm to Paytm you can transfer, or if they have an interface, then you can, with some banks you can transfer it with those banks. With the unified payment interface, it is as seamless as actually talking from one service, from Airtel to Reliance. It doesn't. You really don't care. You simply say, I have money in my bank, I want to give it to you in your wallet. That's possible. Or I have money in my credit card, I give it. So anything to anything kind of transfer of money is what is visualized. So purpose of one of the very driving force of Digital India effort in this is, while we are creating digital infrastructure for connectivity, on the content side, once we make all transactions faceless, paperless and cashless, the quality of content and the quality of service that is delivered is hugely improved. The second part of it is, and it's a little, I thought I will share this, is some of the experiences that we have had over the last year or so with respect to creating more technology. How do you get from this 5 to 10% syndrome to 80 to 90% coverage syndrome is the effort. I mean, last so many years of e-governance initiatives, we have still not been able to touch a large number of people. I have 2 examples, in fact 4 examples, 2 just to mention about how it could be done faster and how, if not done. One is biometric attendance system. I mean, forget the objective, but I am more interested in saying how fast it could be rolled out. This project, I just to share a story. In last week of August of 2014, we were asked that we should develop biometric attendance system and implement it. Between last week of August 2014 and end of September, the system was developed, tested, procurement was done, and in 100 government ministries all over Delhi, this was rolled out from 1st of October 2014. That was one part of it. After that, today, and this number is again dated, it may have even increased because now we are not making any conscious effort to promote this, but over 3,000 central government offices across the country, and this 6 state governments adopted in less than a year. And the total cost of implementation for the central government offices in Delhi and for the hardware in others outside of Delhi has been bought by their own offices, so I'm not counting that, is less than 5 crores. I'll come to that, why that was possible. I'll give you another example, and I'm sure this is something which interests all of us, Jeevan Praman. I hope all of you are familiar with Jeevan Praman. Jeevan Praman is basically an application which allows you to show that all pensioners have to show on 1st of November that they are alive before their banks. And you have to go and give a life certificate, or you have to get it attested by a government officer and send that certificate to your pension drawing branch so that your pension continues to grow. This application was developed, you can biometrically show electronically that you are alive, and then banks can do it. This was again launched in November 2014, and in fact it was launched by the time the year for marking life certificate for that year was actually kind of getting over. Within a year, and this application was developed in-house by NIC, and it was hosted in NIC Cloud, so there was no, I'm not counting those costs, but within a year, this was rolled out in all districts in the country. Apart from various kinds of central government pensions, and there are about at least 8 to 10 different central government pensions, if not more. Most of the states have also joined on the bandwagon, they're also using this now. And all this has implemented. There are, like I said, there is hardly any far-flung districts. People are, especially ex-servicemen and other people, they're all using this to mark their attendance. This is 2 examples of something which could be done in a short time. Look, on the other side, we have had 2 other projects which have not done so well. And one is the E-Code project, and one is the CCTNS project, which is about police station computerization. Both these projects have been going on for about 5 years. E-Court is theoretically been rolled out in all the subordinate courts of the country. We spent over 1,000 crores, but they have huge amount of difficulties, and they are now moving to something what is called a common application. I will come to that. And CCTNS, of course, is still in doldrums. Now, 2 lessons which we have from this is what. Today, technology allows you to actually scale up and roll out very fast. To do universal coverage thanks to cloud, thanks to ability to create federated architecture of loosely coupled modules which talk to each other through APIs. You don't have to create a very complex single monolithic database wherein if you start creating too much of content, it kind of becomes so intricate that you yourself get confused in trying to solve it. And it is therefore the point I was making is, if you create a multi-tenancy cloud-based enterprise-grade solution, then you could do what was done in biometric attendance system. You could do what was done in Jeevan Praman. You could do what Google does when it allows you to create new Gmail accounts without any problem to billions of people. You could do what Amazon does when it allows people to come and sell on their site. You are actually just following that model. The number just becomes a scale number which you need. It really doesn't matter. The second is, and I will not dwell on these too much, the architecture should enable you to scale out rather than scale up. Scaling up leads to the complexity of numbers which grow exponentially. Scale out is modular. You can keep adding one box after another, so that you never really, the problem is actually then added, not multiplied several times over. couple of other things. We increase the ability to do solutions by doing data content, same content multiple times. As far as possible, we should, and this problem even in the digital library project I have seen, it is very difficult sometimes to be able to actually a data which has been digitized to be, you are able to then get it back in the way and the need you want it to be. To simplify the digital content and to be able to retrieve it as per your need, it's very important to slowly starting moving from single source. If there is, if it is a question of biometric data, if Aadhaar has created, we should not recreate the data. Ask Aadhaar to provide us that data. If it is a question of a book, we need not have, if it is, the solutions of this will have to be thought about, but the point is it possible to create a library which can be shared rather than 5 libraries also duplicating that same content 5 times and then trying to access that content? One has to think about it, but that's what basically it says. Try to derive data from primary source of truth rather than duplicating. And of course, dashboard and data analytics, big data is today becoming very easy and more usable, and open data. As much of data that can be opened so that others can use it and it is not. One of the big problems, and I'm sure as LIS people you have also faced it in your respective organizations, is procurement. It is extremely challenging, especially for those who are associated with the government, to procure ICT products. This, to my mind, has been within the government one of the biggest difficulties in terms of being able to implement ICT projects. Again, let me give the example of Aadhaar. In Aadhaar, in last 3 to 4 years, we have done 1 billion biometric databases have been, biometrics have been collected and Aadhaar numbers have been issued across the country. I mean, I am not aware of any other such project which has, gone across the country to each village, collected people's, using technology. I don't know how many, libraries, maybe 20,000 libraries you have across the country, 100,000 libraries you have. Think of something if you have to kind of get data from all these libraries together over a short period of time. And if we went about procurement for all these libraries, what Aadhaar did was they did a very simple thing. They said, we don't want to buy anything. We simply will pay 50 rupees for every valid Aadhaar number. This is my standard, this is my requirement, this is the hardware, software you need to be able to generate this product for me. And for every valid Aadhaar biometric that you generate, I will give you 50 rupees to that vendor. And then they empaneled a number of people who wanted to come. People came in every village, town, city, people started sprouting up and said, we will take up here, there. Whoever wants to come and they had some criteria by which they empanel people. As long as you fulfill the criteria of equipment and capabilities, you have got it. So they had no doubt, they had over 3 lakh such enrolling agencies today across the country. Without any, not a single paisa was spent by them. They spend only when they get an Aadhaar. And what they have done is they have converted their capex to OPEX. They are paying operational expenditure for every Aadhaar generated instead of buying any hardware which would have been required to collect so much of. In government, we are all used to hardware being procured before a service is provided. Now, if you extend this in any environment, this is possible. It is very common, for example, in several government offices that they don't buy their, previously when photocopy machines were very common and were the mainstay of technology, you never bought photocopy machines. The companies had a model where per number of pages photocopied, they will charge you. But then the responsibility of maintaining the photocopier, etc. was from the company because he will get paid per copy. Suppose you need 50 computers in your office. You could possibly have a SLA saying that, I need my computers and I need to be repaired. Every computer which gets faulty should be repaired in 3 hours time, whatever, And you have, and I will pay you depending on number of computers I deploy and the number of, as per the SLA of availability of your computer and connectivity, I will pay you. You have converted your capex to OPEX. And so forth. that is one way where we think the procurement problem of ICT can be solved to a large extent. Because otherwise, a lot of ICT delay we see is in procurement. The second is outsourcing services, then hiring. Today, hiring of IT manpower is the biggest challenge which creating digital content you find, both in the government as outside the government. Very difficult to get IT people. Rates go up. If you get a good person, he will leave you. If you don't get a good person, you don't want him in your organization, and that is where you're stuck. So, like in the case of CapEx, can you actually convert your work into an outsourcing services model? This is the services I need, and I will give that rather than actually hiring people. Because a lot of IT you will have to outsource. Outsource means you may not have in-house capability to do that. And there, if you are able to outsource high services, it would become very important. Third thing, of course, portability of entitlements is something where I think, again, in the context of libraries, for example, ability for people to take outside beyond the library, you should look at that. Today it is in US, the kind of resource availability and sharing capabilities that become available are huge. And so portability of entitlement in the larger concept as well as in the context of the libraries we should look. And largely I think for technology, we are not really making use of technology unless we are getting out of our process syndrome. Especially again in government, we are highly influenced by the processes which have driven in the physical world. Can we really look to come out of it and look at the outcomes of what we wanted to achieve and do things differently? Just as an example, I wanted to share with you is we are thinking, and possibly, if the gods smile on us, maybe we will be able to look at procurement which is different. I mean, when you go to Flipkart and you buy your mobile phone, it doesn't take you any time. But if you have to buy a phone for your office, making the specification, doing the tender, then proprietary hai, iska hai, it's such a huge problem, So why can't we actually, and since I have been dealing this for a while, I can assure you that whether it is DGSND, whether it is NICSI, whether it is any other government system, it never gets the lowest rate. It is fairly well known. You do all this so-called bidding process of this thing, and nowhere I think neither CVC nor CAG nor Finance Ministry wants that to happen. So while we would very much want it to be fair, transparent and equitable, can we not have a fair e-com platform where everyone is able to display their prices and you are able to go on that platform and choose the good you want? Because ultimately idea is to be able to buy fairly, transparently and without this thing at a cheapest price, which was the primary of why was this whole bidding process invented? Because you wanted to make sure when government was buying something, it would buy at the cheapest price as well. So today technology gives us the options, so can we look at new ways of using technology so that while creating content, it is also creating a value which was not possible earlier. This is the last part of my Digital India thing all this is irrelevant if people can't access the content and the services that you are creating. And one of the important part of it is digital literacy. Shockingly, as per a survey which was done a few years back, more than 80%, 85% of people in the country are digitally literate. And today, we started a program in 2014 with 10 lakh people to be made. So we said, let's start one person each household to be made digital literate. And we took an initial number of 10 lakh people. That number, same year we increased to 50 lakh, and 50 lakhs to be achieved over 4 years because that was a large number we thought. But there has been so much of response that 50 lakh has actually got covered in 1.5 years. It is over now. We have actually done 60-70 lakhs. And this year's budget, for example, the finance minister said 6 crore households to be covered over the next 3 to 4 years. And we hope that we will be able to do that also earlier. Our idea is that at least every household in the future should be digitally literate to participate in this digital content revolution. The second part, like I mentioned, is today the need for making digital resources in Indian language. I think, friends, this is something where I would like to exhort all of you for maximum effort. We are, like I said, we are not like Europe, we are not like Asian countries also. We are far, far behind. Less than 5% of our content is in local language. And if people in the villages are going to see content only in English or Google translated English, I think it is actually quite unsatisfactory. This is a difficult problem, as all of you people who are from this field know that language is one of the difficult problems to solve. There are no 100% sure answers. Google, with all its billions of dollars of resources, has not been able to crack the problem fully. And we have several languages. But through the DELNET network, I would like to appeal. One, that all libraries in states should be encouraged to put their local language content digitally. That is point number one. Second is, wherever possible, CDAC has a platform which enables people to contribute to digital content translation in any application. It's a free software, free application. So it is a crowd. So one of the challenges is, so software does some translation from content A to content B, or from language A to language B. Unfortunately, the technology is not so advanced that this translation would be perfect. Language is such a complex, nuanced, contextual thing. What it provides is that anyone who knows the other language can go and actually say, if the machine translation is wrong, no, this is the correct language, and machine learns. So we must, as a country as a whole, as a collective body of people, come together and try to contribute this. My own understanding, and I'm sure Professor Poona will be able to give more light on this if there are questions later on, but if we need to reach a scale of 100, we are still somewhere at less than 5 in this scale in terms of developing language capabilities or content that will enable reasonably. But I must tell you that, I mean, in Europe, for example, European Union Parliament does a lot of its work automatic translation to various European languages. So it is possible. And if they can do it, there's no reason why we should not be able to do it. So I think we must make a conscious effort to strive towards local language content more and more. Who is that they are transforming their display of content in such a manner that most of the content can be pre-translated and made available, at least the important content, so that people get a gist of what is there in any case. And rest of it is machine dynamically translated. So at least with that, more or less, e-com sites today do a lot of pre-labeling in local languages, so that if you choose for a Marathi language, it will come with Marathi language, and only few things will be translated by machine. Error likelihood is less. Let me move faster. So of course, cloud and collaborative digital platforms for participative governance, MyGov, I have already spoken about. So I think today we were speaking about cyber security. That's again, there are niche areas, data analytics, cloud, mobility, etc. These are new areas of technology on which a lot of work is going on, government promotion is going on. Industry is also super active in this area. I think what we need is to take advantage of all these efforts that are going on and take advantage of it. I want to say this, by some quirk of fate or whatever, I have been in the IT sector for nearly over 10 years, 12 years, 14 years in the government. A job that's very rare. And I have been associated with IT, trying to do e-governance and other stuff for a while. But never before have I seen this kind of a political will at the highest level, from the highest level. Now this is very important. This is not again a political statement. It is today fairly well known that transforming from a physical world to a digital technology-driven world is a challenge, even in private organizations. We all as human beings are resistant to change, and we feel unsure. And this is not even just mere being unsure, but the fact is that when technology comes, a lot of power structures within organizations shift. Because people who are possibly today controlling all the information, suddenly the information becomes public, its power goes away and he doesn't like it, So it's very difficult to move people from physical world to technology world, digital world. And that invariably requires a little bit of a determined push from the top. In the case of government, that has to come from the political leadership. And why Digital India has become so exciting is today we see that that political will. Just to relate to your story, one of the first things which this government did, in fact, the first program that was launched by the Prime Minister was MyGov. It was launched on 26th of July 2014. But one of the first meetings he took, he had our secretary went and he made a big presentation on Digital India. And as is typical in government, he made big all these plans. A lot of this is already part of Digital India. A little bit changes have also happened after that. He made a big plan, big structure. That's very usual. And when he listened to it in great, it was a long meeting. And then there was this massive, the projection, इस सबको करने के लिए करीब 1 लाख करोड़ रुपए की जरूरत पड़ेगी. So he only said at the end of this, मुझको लगता है कि इस काम के लिए पैसे की कमी नहीं पड़नी चाहिए, क्योंकि जितना भी पैसा इस काम में आप डालिएगा उससे कहीं ज्यादा ये देश के लिए बेनिफिट लेके आएगा. I mean, it's a different story that 1 लाख करोड़ की ना हमें जरूरत पड़ी और ना मे भी बहुत दिनों तक नहीं पड़ेगी, but that is the kind of political commitment that was there in the first meeting when a huge number like that was thrown up. After that, every ministry and every department has been told and asked to make their own plans for how to use technology within their domains and within their activities. Today, the message is clear that it is not a question of option. Previously also, we were doing e-governance, but e-governance was one another way of government departments to deliver services. Today, that is not. Technology is the way to deliver services. Maybe for the residual set of people, you could also deliver it in the physical way, but the main way, the central way of doing things should be digitally. And that is why, for example, DBT, today, nearly 3 lakh crore rupees have been directly credited from Consolidated Fund of India to the bank accounts of various beneficiaries under various schemes. I mean, the whole effort of inclusion and more things being driven digitally, it has been a period of excitement in terms of digital conversion of India as never before. That's the point I want to make. And some of the examples, big cases, MyGov, DBT, National Scholarship, e-agriculture mandis. Recent mandi, I don't know if any one of you have had an opportunity to notice in the plethora of things that are happening. To my mind, a very exciting application has recently got launched, the e-mandi application. The mandis are the stranglehold which hold the farmers in this country, because every farmer has to go and sell his produce in the mandi, and mandis are all controlled by middlemen, most of the time the power brokers of that village, who do not allow these people to sell the farm except to those few middlemen who are there, who control the prices. E-mandi suddenly liberates all that. It allows you to sell to anyone outside of that area as well. And that has been launched, and so forth, a large number of projects, I don't want to list, but every ministry today, I mean, we see is coming out with massive national programs which will create digital content of the scale which has not been seen in this country. A national insurance program, e-hospital, health activities, all at a national level at a very large scale. Let me just conclude by saying, so what in the last few years? So, look at the way things, the graph is increasing, the number of internet users has increased. I always say the last year we added 100 million internet users in the country. The previous 100 million took 18 months. So last 100 million in 12 months, previous 100 million, 18 months. The previous 100 million took 3 years, 36 months. And the first 100 million took nearly about 10 years to happen. So the number of time taken for every 100 million is progressively coming down. E-services, you see the number of e-services which people are taking, This is 58 crore, 580 million e-services, 58 crore e-services as against 29 crores in 2014. You know, there is a increase in the number of transactions people across the country are doing online. E-commerce, you know, again, and you all see your e-commerce. I'm sure children are today doing more e-commerce than any one of us. You know, smartphones, number of smartphones. We are the fastest growing smartphone market in absolute numbers. We are number 2 after China, but we are the fastest growing smartphone market in the world. But this is where you know, even my future is very, very exciting. You know, so there's a recent study by Cisco which said that the digital content in India is going to quadruple between 2014 to 19, growing at a CAGR of 33%. Internet traffic is going to increase 40 times between 2014 to 2019. And Indian internet traffic in 2019 is going to be 51 times of entire internet traffic in 2005. So we have finally seemed to be catching up the digital content bandwagon as the rest of the world. And given our scale and given the program and the things that we have been driving, I think it will be. One of the important things, of course, to flag here is that a lot of this is mobile driven in India. And that is to be expected because we never saw the computer penetration increase. Lastly, just wanted to flag a few red flags. You know, language is, to my mind, the single biggest thing. Second is a big opportunity we have missed so far is on the geographic information system. I didn't talk about it much, but it is something which I fail to see why we did not do it. But now we are opening up to it. Recently, the NAVIC was launched, but even without NAVIC, I think much greater use of geographic information systems in whatever we do needs to create. And when we are creating all this content, data analytics would be greater use of data analytics will help us generate the greater economic, social, and intellectual benefits which we talked about, and you know, see how the procurement of goods and services can be eased so that this whole process of creating digital content cannot be possible unless we can procure these goods and services, and this is something which is always a constraint, but we must work towards it. So friends, I think that is what I had. I think I took longer than what I expected, but I hope you